Welcome to the United Methodist Church of New Lenox. This is truly a day that the Lord has made, so let us rejoice and be glad in. My name is Wesley, and along with my colleague Mark, we have the blessing and the privilege of serving this congregation, and we pray that this is an opportunity for all of us to grow a little bit deeper into our faith, to ask perhaps some difficult questions, and to wrestle with what it means to genuinely come alive in our resurrection faith. We also recognize that this is an incredibly special day for many people in your household too. And so as we welcome you to worship, we'd invite you to take a quick look at a way to prepare for this special Mother's Day.
It's Mother's Day. So here's a step-by-step guide on how to make all those Proverbs 31 ladies feel great on their special day. Step 1. Locate some beautiful flowers. Moms love saving money, so try to find some free ones. Step 2. Get the flowers and the water as quick as you can. Can't have them dying on ya. Step 3. Find some more beautiful flowers, but this time let the scissors do all the work. Come on. Perfection. Step 4. Find a bow or something to jazz things up a bit. Remember, people, it's all about the details. Step 5. Enlist your baby sister to help you make a thoughtful Mother's Day card. I knew you couldn't be trusted. Step 6. If you have another sister waiting in the bullpen, grab her instead. Preferably one that appreciates the delicate art of watercoloring. You have a gift. Thank you.
Hey, honey, I'm home. Hey, sweetie.
Amateur. It's the thought that counts, I guess.
We truly do hope that this is a very fun, energetic, and amazing day for you. At this time, we invite you to pass the peace of Christ with one another. Perhaps send a text message or a quick email or write a note to somebody who may need to hear from you. This is an opportunity for us to listen to some special music and to prepare our hearts for worship that we will encounter on this day.
Shepherd lead us, much we need thy tender care. In thy pleasant pastures feed us, for our use thy folds prepare. We are thine, do thou befriend us.
Would you join me in the opening prayer? Lord of life, submitting to death, you conquered the grave. By being lifted on a cross, you draw all peoples to you. By being raised from the dead, you restored to humanity all that we had lost through sin. Throughout these 50 days of Easter, we proclaim the marvelous mystery of death and resurrection. For all praise is yours, now and throughout eternity. Amen. Hey kids, welcome to church today. I've brought with me something very special. It's my birth certificate. Well, it's not my actual birth certificate, but it's a commemorative birth certificate. It has all the important information. It says that I was born. It says who my mother was, who my father was. It says where I was born, and even who delivered me. It says the time and the date that I was born. All these important events about my birth. But today is Mother's Day. And this says that my mother was Barbara. That's the name of my mother. Now, she was there when I was born. It was a fairly big deal for her. It was a fairly big deal for me. But before I was born, I was with her for 9 months inside of her, and she loved me even though she didn't really know me. And she loved me after I was born, even though I was just a baby. And she loved me when I was in my terrible 2s and 3s and 4s and 5s and 20s. And she continues to love me even to this day, even when I've made mistakes, even when I've hurt her, even when I've disappointed her. My mother loves me with a fierce love. Now, the Bible talks about God's love as the love of a mother several times. Fierce love, passionate love, love that protects and secures. I hope you have a wonderful mother who loves you. And I want you to know that God loves you just as much. In fact, God loves you even more. One of my favorite mother imageries in the Bible is that God loves us like a mother hen loves her chicks, surrounding them, protecting them, and caring for them. So this Mother's Day, thank God for loving you your entire life, protecting you, being there for you, but also thank your mother. Do something nice for her. Maybe even just listen to her today, even if you don't want to. Would you pray with me? Dear Jesus, thank you for loving us. Thank you for loving us and giving us mothers. Thank you for their love. Allow us to love them and love you. Amen. Thank you, kids. We'll see you next week. We come now to a time of prayer. I remind you always, if you have a prayer concern, go to umcnl.com, fill out one of our prayer cards, and our prayer team will be praying for you. If you need to speak to a pastor, you can do the same, and we will contact you. Would you join me in prayer? Lord, we come to you this day, approaching the end of Eastertide, basking in your resurrection and springtime. We ask that you continue to encourage us, lift us up, strengthen us, as the world and those around us sometimes try to bring us down. Allow us to continue to be there for those who are hungry, those who are naked, those who are sick, those who are in prison, those who need to hear your good news. We pray this in your holy name, praying the prayer you taught us, saying, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. The gospel reading today comes from the gospel according to Mark, the 16th chapter. We will read verse 8 and the second ending starting in verse 9. Overcome with terror and dread, they fled from the tomb. They said nothing to anyone because they were afraid. After Jesus rose up early on the first day of the week, he appeared first to Mary Magdalene, from whom he had cast out 7 demons. She went and reported to the ones whom had been with him, who were mourning and weeping. But even after they heard the news, they didn't believe that Jesus was alive and that Mary had seen him. After that, he appeared in a different form to 2 of them who were walking along in the countryside. When they returned, they reported it to the others, but they didn't believe them. Finally, he appeared to the 11 while they were eating. Jesus criticized their unbelief and stubbornness because they didn't believe those who saw him after he was raised up. He said to them, Go into the whole world and proclaim the good news to every creature. Whoever believes and is baptized will be saved, but whoever doesn't believe will be condemned. These are the signs that will be associated with those who believe. They will throw out demons in my name. They will speak in new languages. They will pick up snakes with their hands. If they drink anything poisonous, it will not hurt them. They will place their hands on the sick, and they will get well. This is the word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God.
Friends, let us be in the spirit of prayer. Lord, would you silence any voice within us except that of your own? Help us to hear what it is that you would say to us this day, so that the words of my mouth and the meditation of all of our hearts would truly be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. This morning we're finishing up a series on the great 50 days of Easter, that time between Easter Sunday and Pentecost, when we take a look at various resurrection appearances in the gospel. Today really is a summary of all of them, and all of the gospel encounters with the resurrected Christ captures a different response where all of us at some point have felt our own encounter with the resurrected Christ. From Mary on Easter Sunday, who would cling to the experience of encountering the resurrected Christ, to the disciples on the road to Emmaus who were running away from the events that they knew had just taken place, to the disciples in the upper room who were hiding in doubt, to Peter and some of the disciples returning to normal, or also after breakfast on the seashore, the desire to confront our past. Clinging to, running away, hiding in doubt, returning to normal, confronting our past are all ways in which we encounter resurrection in the midst of the season. Today we finish by taking a look at the ending of the Gospel of Mark. The original ending of the Gospel of Mark literally finishes, overcome with terror and dread, they fled from the tomb and they said nothing to anyone, for they were afraid. And the original author of Mark basically summed it up, finished his book, and said that's it. In my opinion, it is the worst literary ending in the gospel possible. The resurrection happens, but then we're told that the disciples do absolutely nothing, and that's the end of the story. I mean, there's no sense that anything happened. I mean, go and tell the disciples and Peter that he's risen from the dead. They're told that Jesus is raised, but then they ultimately say nothing to anyone. It's a terrible ending. Do they go and tell? Do they actually go and see? Do they actually encounter the resurrected Christ? I honestly think that the original ending of the Gospel of Mark is designed as a gospel of faith, that essentially it leaves it in your lap. The questions, do they go, do they tell, do they see the resurrected Christ, is ultimately up to you. The ending is not told because it leaves it in your lap. You have the decision. You are left to decide if this is your story. You would have to decide, how now are you planning to live? What actually would change as a result of this knowledge that the resurrection has occurred? And ultimately, how would the resurrection affect your life? I think there are at least 7 various arenas in which resurrection can affect us. Usually I would share some of these around the time of the new year because they're arenas around which I make my own plans for a new year and the way in which I pray that God would work in my heart around various aspects of my life. I decided to bring with you my actual New Year's resolutions or my faith goals for 2021. Faith goals, are they focused? Are they attainable? Individual, meaning that they affect me. Are they trackable and are they heartfelt? Some people talk about these frequently as SMART goals. I call them faith goals. And on this list are these various arenas in which I believe there are ways in which God is calling me to shape and refine and to be the person that God is calling me to be because I attempt to live into a concept of a resurrected life. There are things like our spiritual life, our disciplines, how it is that we spend a little bit of time refocused on the resurrection and the way in which God would encounter us. You see, if the resurrection is true, if Jesus really is the Lord of life, the Lord of the universe, the Lord of the cosmos, then how is it we be devoted spiritually to offer ourselves to God for just a few moments a day? And that may be 5 minutes or 10 minutes. I usually spend approximately an hour, and that's just what I need for my own soul. You may need 15 minutes, and you can spend that with Pastor Mark on YouTube Monday through Friday. You can spend 10 minutes listening to the reading of the scriptures. You can pick a chapter or two of the Bible, and I prefer go to the Gospel of Mark. Read 1 chapter a day, and that will get you through the entire Gospel in 16 short days. But is there a way in which your spiritual life is growing deeper because you believe in resurrection? Our physical well-being. We believe that Jesus was raised not just in this ghost-like fashion, but a physical being. We believe in the resurrection of the dead. The resurrection of our bodies is part of our creeds. And so, do we take care of our physical needs? Now, this is obviously true in just about everything around a New Year's, right? You see advertisements all the time for various diet plans or various exercise equipment, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But is there a small change that you could make that tends to your physical needs? Our financial lives. I mean, think of the ways in which there are financial opportunities that we have. And we're going to hear of some in a few minutes where we'll be challenged to think of the ways in which we're called to give on behalf of others. Do we stretch our muscle of generosity? Do we actually decide that we want to tackle our debts so that we can give more freely? Are there areas in our lives where we actually want to experience redemption and resurrection so that we have a new sense of life in the arena of our finances? How about our intellectual life? Are you reading anything? Do you engage in something that will stimulate the mind and challenge the way that we think? After all, Jesus' command is to love God with your heart, soul, strength, and don't forget that other component, to love God with your mind. Are we stretching our mind? Are we actually growing intellectually? How about in our social lives, our family or our friends? If resurrection is true, are there relationships in our lives that need to be nurtured? Is there something that we have left amiss that needs to go back and encounter a resurrection? How about in our leisure or in our recreation? Is there hobbies? Are there hobbies that we've let go of? Are there things that feed our soul that we simply haven't attended to? Or on the last of my list is also things to do with my career, which isn't how I would advance in a career. That's not what happens with ministry. But every single year I pray about the ways in which God may lead me to serve this church even better than I have in the year past. I'm not interested in going anywhere, for that's not what ministry is about. Ministry is about serving the people in your midst. And for those of you who may be retired, retirement is not retirement from a call to serve in ministry. And so how is it that you offer your service? How is it that you pray? How is it that you offer ministry and witness to other people around you? How is it that you speak about your faith? How is it that you share a little bit about the ways in which God is moving in your life? See, I honestly think resurrection touches every aspect of our life. The challenge is always that we can't expect perfection in one day. But every sunrise is a new opportunity to do what we can to live into God's call. And the truth is that the smallest steps can make the biggest of differences. For many of us, in many arenas of our life, it requires that perhaps we find an accountability partner or some sort of a small group that can come alongside us and support us. There are ways in which we can reach out to someone that we trust to literally invite them to hold us accountable. I have that for several arenas of my life. People who will hold me accountable and ask some tough questions like, did you do what you said you were going to do today? Yeah, well, and then the answer sometimes is no. But there's a necessity to be brutally honest with ourselves about why we did or did not do what we're called to do. The other piece of this, when resurrection touches everything, is to recognize we cannot do it ourselves. It's not up to our own will, our own selfish desires. Well, we become new creations as a result of how it is that God works in us and how God instills in us this sense of a new life, because we become new creations because it is God's work. Resurrection literally touches everything. And so we go back to this original ending in Gospel of Mark. It's a terrible ending, but it leaves it in your lap. Do they tell? Do they go? Do they see the resurrected Christ? And ultimately, I believe the answer to that clearly is a resounding yes. Of course they did. Of course they went and told. And evidence of that is because of the rise of the Christian movement, the people who were followers of the way, people who were followers of Christ, who began to literally make an impact all around the then known world. But see, the original author left it in a way that was rather unsettling. And a later editor comes along and doesn't really like the way that it ends. And so when we didn't like the unsettling ending, I think this is where he adds what Paul Harvey used to call the rest of the story. In the midst of adversity, sometimes the original ending isn't always comfortable, which is why I believe there's the longer endings that get added. The longest of those endings is what Pastor Mark read a while ago. After Jesus rose on the first day of the week, he appeared to Mary Magdalene, from whom he had cast out 7 demons. But even after she goes and reports to the disciples, they didn't believe what she had said. After that, he appeared to another 2 of them who were walking along in the countryside, and when they returned, they reported it to the others. They didn't believe. See, this is the entire Easter series that we've been going through. Mary Magdalene on Easter Sunday, the appearance to the 2 disciples on the road to Emmaus, and then finally, he appears to the 11 while they were eating in the upper room. And he says to them, go into the whole world, proclaim the news to every creature, which I always love. Proclaim the news to every creature that in sincerity, resurrection, if it touches everything, doesn't touch our own life. It also touches all of creation. A part of God's call from the original creation from everything was this desire to steward or to be good stewards of all of creation. It's why, on my way here today, we would stop for a family of geese that are crossing the middle of the road instead of just plowing through them, because we love creation. There's something, and maybe this isn't true for you, but there's something about me that always desires that I would rather slam on my brakes to avoid hitting any little creature than to simply run over it, because I believe in the resurrection and the proclamation of good news to all creatures. John Wesley believed in the redemption of all creatures too, that someday we would not just meet our heavenly creator, but that we would meet all of the other creation as well. In a Bible study not that long ago, I was sharing that, and somebody thought about the cows that we would eat and went, uh-oh. That's just a little bit of fun, but the truth is, good news to every creature, that God loves the whole world and everything within it. God owns the cattle on 1,000 hills, and he owns the hills too. That God owns everything. All of creation belongs to God. I love that. Whoever believes and is baptized will be saved. Whoever doesn't believe will be condemned, which I always wrestle with that. But I also love that the condemnation really isn't something that happens as a result of whether we're baptized or not, because baptism is not a requisite to experience God's grace and God's love, as clearly evidenced in the thief on the cross. But then it continues, these signs will be associated with those who believe. They'll throw out demons in my name. They'll speak new languages. They'll pick up snakes with their hands. If they drink anything poisonous, it will not hurt them. They will place their hands on the sick and they will get well. And what I love about this isn't something that's forecasting what we are able to do. That's why we in the church don't necessarily play with a whole lot of snakes. That's why we don't mess with a whole lot of that stuff. But what we see is that the later author, when he added on to the Gospel of Mark, is reflecting upon the entire story of what had happened as a result of resurrection. That the apostles experienced the speaking of new languages. That happens in Acts chapter 2 on Pentecost, and we'll talk about that in a couple of weeks. You know, the poisonous snakes, that's what happens to the Apostle Paul when he's on the island of Malta and he's on his way to Rome, that he throws sticks in the fire and a poisonous snake comes out and latches onto his hand, and Paul simply casts it aside, and no harm comes to him. Read about it in the 28th chapter of Acts. The author of the longer ending of Mark is reflecting back on what had happened as a result of people's faith. People were healed. People experienced the miraculous. If we read the Gospel of, not the Gospel of Acts, the book of Acts, the 28 chapters of Acts provide an incredible witness to what had happened as a result of the disciples, now apostles, as they came into their faith. You see, the point, I think, of all of this, the point that I believe is most important, even in the unsettling, is that there is always more to the story. There is always more to the story than simply meets the eye. The original ending is they didn't share anything because they were afraid. And of course, that's how we often feel, afraid to share anything. But there's always more to the story. When we walk in the midst of adversity, when it feels as if everything comes crashing down, there is always more to the story. That's what resurrection shares with us. Our circumstances ultimately do not reflect the way that God feels about us. And God's lack of cooperation at times is not an argument for or against God's existence. There is no rational correlation between cooperation and existence. After all, if we believed that you could prove existence by whether or not someone cooperated with you, you would recognize that some of you wouldn't have children. If they don't cooperate with you, then clearly they don't exist. Could be walking around on Mother's Day saying there is no mom because sometimes moms don't cooperate with us. That's not the way that it happens. You see, there's always, at some point, even as we walk through the adversity of our lives, there's always more to the story. And there are times when it feels that everything is falling apart. There are moments when, occasionally, there are families where I would love to share, this someday will be a great story. It doesn't feel like it when you're walking in the midst of that story. But when it's all finished, when it's all said and done, you know, that vacation from hell, that time that your laundry room blew up, that time when everything seemed to fall apart, when nothing went right, those are stories that will become amazing. Just give it time. When it feels as if we can't handle one thing more. How we handle it, how we make through it, how we remain faithful creates a profound story for others. The resurrection is what provides us an opportunity to recognize that there is always more to the story. It is the most significant event of history. signifies to us that we're not simply stuck, that there is nothing that's beyond the scope of God's love. And it becomes our defining narrative, the core of our faith, because resurrection literally changes and literally touches every aspect of our life. You are a new creation because God is willing through Jesus to meet us right where we are, is willing to challenge us to turn our breakdowns into breakthroughs, is willing to take whatever we feel is unforgivable and make it forgivable. That everything is all about God's grace. That our past may shape the lives that we now have, but they certainly don't define who we will be. Resurrection changes everything. In the midst of discovering the unsettling, in the midst of our fears, our doubts, our insecurities, our anxieties, in all circumstances, there's more to the story. Which is why I have shared all the way through this series that Easter is my defining narrative. It does not change our circumstances, but it definitively changes our perspective. Resurrection does not insulate us from any pain or problems, but it definitively changes and transforms the way we handle them. It is because of resurrection we come to understand and recognize and fully believe and invest in a story that reminds us that the worst thing is never the last thing. Thanks be to God for the resurrection that is brought to each of us in the matchless, holy, precious name of the resurrected Christ. Let us pray. Lord, you know that all of us at times wrestle with our fears, our doubts, our insecurities, our feelings of failure, of guilt, and of shame. You understand where all of us need to experience a touch of your resurrection life. And so would you teach us that we are not alone, that the worst thing is never the last thing, and that there's always more to this story. And would you help us by your grace to reach out and to recognize that you are the one who sends others to walk alongside us in this journey. And ultimately, may we have the wisdom to know what to do with what we've just heard, and then the courage to begin to put it into practice. And this we pray in the name of Jesus the Christ. Amen.
Welcome to this time of gratitude and generosity. We invite you to consider how you can support your church and your community with your time, your talents, and your treasures. Go to umcnl.com, download our app, and there's many different ways to give. We encourage you to do this for your spiritual health and for the health and well-being of our entire world. Now, we have a couple other opportunities this coming few weeks. May 15th, we're going to do a work day at Camp Reynoldswood in Dixon, Illinois. May 22nd, we're going to work at the Northern Illinois Food Bank. If you're interested in either of those opportunities, contact the office or one of the pastors, and we will get you connected to the missions committee. Many of you have asked about how we can help our brothers and sisters in India. Now, the United Methodist Committee on Relief, UMCOR, is our body that supports groups throughout the world. And if you'd like to support those in India, you can just give to our church and mark it India or UMCOR India, and that money will go to help those in need in that country. Would you now join us as we consider how we can be generous and grateful for all God has given us? Will you join me in the prayer of dedication? Jesus, Lord of life and new beginnings, we present our time, our talents, and our treasures to you this day. We pray that we may truly be Easter people, living into the resurrection. Bless these tithes and offerings, that they may be used to build us up as your body, as we seek to share the good news of the empty tomb. Amen.
I serve a risen Savior, He's in the world today. I know that He is living, whatever foes may say. I see His hand of mercy, I hear His voice of cheer. And just the time I need Him, He's always near. He lives, Christ Jesus lives today. He walks with me and talks with me along life's narrow way. He lives, salvation to impart. You ask me how I know He lives. He lives within my heart. In all the world around me, I see His loving care. And though my heart grows weary, I never will despair. I know that He is leading through all the stormy blast. The day of His appearing will come at last. He lives, Christ Jesus lives today. He walks with me and talks with me along life's narrow way. He lives, salvation to impart. You ask me how I know He lives. He lives within my heart. Rejoice, rejoice, O Christians, lift up your voice and sing. Eternal hallelujahs to Jesus Christ the King, the hope of all who seek Him, the help of all who find. No other is so loving, so good and kind. He lives, Christ Jesus lives today. He walks with me and talks with me along life's narrow way. He lives, salvation to impart. You ask me how I know He lives. He lives within my heart.
As we leave this time of worship, go always, knowing that the living Lord will go with you, above you to watch over you, beneath you to lift you from grief and sorrow, always beside you to befriend you, behind you to encourage you, before you to show you the way, but always within you to give you the gifts of faith, hope, and love. Dear friends, go forth in grace and in peace, in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.